There is something deeply unsettling about watching a man walk out of a reunion taping and immediately grab his phone to tell the world it was one of the most intense things he's ever experienced. And this is Andy Cohen we're talking about. The man who has hosted over 100 reunions. Maybe 150. The man who has sat across from table-flipping housewives, sobbing betrayals, and some of the most unhinged confrontations in Bravo history. So when he says the Summer House Season 10 reunion was something else entirely, you stop. You sit with that. Because that's not promotional language. That's a person exhaling after something genuinely heavy. Andy walked out of that taping and said plainly, "This was one of the most intense reunions we've ever shot. This was a lot. This was a lot. It was very intense, you guys." Not manufactured hype. Not a producer's soundbite. That's someone who lived through 10 hours in a room with people carrying real, unresolved wounds, and came out the other side needing a moment. 10 hours. Let that settle. The core of what made this reunion so volatile isn't complicated to understand on paper. Sierra Miller, who had a romantic history with West Wilson, a man who once told her he wasn't ready to commit, and delivered that information through a New York Times interview rather than a direct conversation, watched the current season air and saw what looked, to many viewers, like West actually coming back around. They were flirty. There was warmth. Some people were quietly hoping. And then reality punched back hard. Reports began circulating in March 2026 that West Wilson and Amanda Batchelor, Sarah's close friend, and the woman whose marriage to Kyle Cook had just publicly collapsed, were romantically linked. West appeared on Watch What Happens Live and described Amanda as a very important person to me and said they were just hanging out in New York. Amanda was in the same denial lane. And then, within days, a joint statement went out confirming they had developed feelings for each other. That shift, from denial on live television to confirmation, is the kind of thing that doesn't just hurt people. It rewrites the entire story you thought you were watching. And that is what walked into that reunion room on April 23rd. What I keep coming back to is the silence before the storm. There's a specific kind of emotional damage that happens when someone you trusted, both of them really looked you in the eye, or looked into a camera that reaches you, and said nothing is happening. And then something was happening. That's not just a betrayal of the friendship. That's a kind of psychological whiplash that lingers. Sierra didn't just have to process the relationship between Amanda and West. She had to reckon with the fact that she was actively misled while the audience watched. That kind of public humiliation has a texture that's different from private pain. And then someone decided to leak the reunion audio. Multiple audio clips from the Season 10 reunion went viral on social media shortly after filming wrapped on April 23rd. Andy Cohen responded with visible fury, writing that it was disgusting and illegal, and that people laid their souls out emotionally for 10 hours and deserve to have that protected. It's disrespectful to the work and the tears the cast put in, he added. The leaking of reunion audio is not a small thing. This was a room where people, real people, regardless of how you feel about their choices, were crying, breaking down, saying things they had saved up for months. And someone in or near that room decided the moment didn't deserve privacy. That tells you something about how chaotic and charged the energy was. This wasn't a casual afternoon taping. This was the kind of session that makes people feel exposed in ways they didn't entirely anticipate. But then something genuinely strange and almost cinematic entered the story. Jennifer Lawrence, Academy Award winner, Jennifer Lawrence, provided crucial information that helped Bravo track down the person responsible for leaking the audio. Andy Cohen called her a Bravo superfan and announced her involvement on Watch What Happens Live, saying, "Jennifer Lawrence, Oscar winner, you are the top of the class." He noted that she cracked the case while actively filming a Martin Scorsese movie on set. "I need you to absorb that." Jennifer Lawrence, between takes of a Scorsese film, apparently put on her detective hat for Summer House and solved it. If that story doesn't encapsulate the kind of gravitational pull this season had on the cultural conversation, I genuinely don't know what does. Even people operating at the highest level of mainstream Hollywood were invested in who leaked the Summer House reunion. Kyle Cook told his ex-wife Amanda in a newly filmed scene, "I know you're not a bad person. I think you were reckless and thoughtless, if I'm being honest. Read that sentence one more time. That's not anger. That's something closer to grief, and grief filtered through someone who clearly still cares, which makes it more painful to hear, not less. The word reckless is deliberate. It's not accusing her of being cruel. It's questioning whether she was present enough, conscious enough of the consequences, to fully understand what she was stepping into and what she was stepping on. And now, the news that's landing for Summer House fans like a gut punch dressed in casual language. West Wilson will not be returning for season 11. His contract has not been renewed. Bravo confirmed this ahead of the bonus episode Summer House. The Aftermath, with filming set to begin in early July. Some people will call that justice. Some people will call it consequence. And some people, the ones who watched West in earlier seasons, who saw moments of genuine self-reflection mixed with real immaturity, who thought there was something worth watching there, might feel something more complicated. Not sympathy exactly, but a recognition that the way this all played out, publicly and rapidly, left very little room for nuance. There are now real questions swirling about where OG cast members Kyle, Amanda, and Lindsay Hubbard land, all three of whom are now starring in the spin-off In the City, which filmed in the fall of 2025. Whether they return to Summer House or focus entirely on the spin-off remains genuinely unclear. Bravo's VP of current production Josh Brown has said the cast will be locked by end of June, with filming beginning in early July regardless of who returns. That timeline is tight. Almost uncomfortably tight. And it raises a question that doesn't have a clean answer. What does Summer House look like without the relationship architecture that made this season the most watched in the show's history? The season 10 premiere was the show's strongest debut ever. Those numbers came from chaos. From a love triangle that had real emotional stakes for real people. From Amanda and Kyle. From Sierra. From West. From 10 years of history among some of these people. You can't replicate manufactured stakes. And you can't manufacture the kind of loss that happens when something that was building for years finally collapses in front of cameras. Season 11 will have new people. New dynamics. The house in Sag Harbor that's been home since season May 6th not even be the house anymore. Fans noticed it's listed for sale, which raised fears about what summer 2026 looks like for the show geographically. But Bravo isn't in panic mode. Josh Brown told The Hollywood Reporter, "We do not feel like this is a reboot situation at all. We feel like this is evolving." That framing is deliberate and worth examining. Evolving is the language of something that's still alive, still growing, still figuring itself out. It's not the language of replacement, but it is the language of change. And change, after a season this seismically dramatic, is going to feel enormous regardless of how quietly it's announced. The thing that stays with me, underneath all of this, is Sierra. Because she came into this season having already been hurt once by West, publicly, through a newspaper interview, and she navigated that with a kind of visible emotional intelligence that a lot of viewers connected to deeply. And then season 10 aired and the story shifted again, and the reunion happened, and now the dust is settling. Where does she land in season 11? Does she return to a house that carries all of this weight? Does she walk away? Does she stay and rebuild something? Or does she leave the version of herself that was shaped by these relationships behind? I don't think anyone knows. And honestly, that uncertainty, that open, unresolved question about who these people are on the other side of this, is the thing I can't stop thinking about. What do you think happens next? Who do you want to see return to the house? And who do you think the show is better off building something new around? Drop it in the comments. I genuinely want to know where you're landing on all of this.